Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. All right, so audio and video seem to be working. And yes, as you can probably tell, I am not Paige. We've had a little bit of a technical issue with our titling. It doesn't seem to be updating. Not sure why, folks, but hopefully that will get fixed afterwards. So yes, if you are here expecting to see Paige doing some animation, I'm afraid you are out of luck. So if you want to hang around and see some sculpting, then please feel free to do so. But I am very sorry that I'm not Paige. I am not an animator, Warrior Maddie. No, I am not an animator. I'm an asset specialist. So I do modeling, sculpting, texturing, all that kind of good stuff. So yes, folks, I will. I'm not, as I said, I'm not sure why we have such a weird issue with the titling, but it sometimes just happens with YouTube and Restream and things like that. So with that in mind, so now that that's out of the way, let's get stuck into what it is we're actually going to be working on today. Hey, Split Specs. So today we are actually doing a special, a kind of special request, really, from one of our firestormstudio team members, and we're going to be creating a version of a character or a creature from the Monster Hunter World video game, and in this case, we're going to be recreating Toby Kadachi. Now, I've probably butchered the pronunciation of that name. I apologize if I have, but that's where we are. So you can see what it is we're going to be creating today. This is an in-game model of the creature. I also have some other reference from the art book off on my other screen here, and I'm going to be just creating a bit of a bust of the creature and seeing how far we can get today. Now, I do want to point out it's very hot in the UK today. And for that very reason, if I have my air conditioner on in the background, if you can hear it and it's bothering you, please do let me know in the chat, and I will turn it off if it's blocking out or making it difficult to hear what it is I'm saying. Okay. But unfortunately, if I don't keep it on, at least at the moment, then I'll probably pass out from the heat. Just one of those unfortunate things of living in a country that is not designed in buildings that are not designed for hot weather. So, and I'm up north as well, so it's much cooler up here than it is for the poor souls down south. So, all right. Okie dokie dokie. Right, let's go. Okay, folks. So we're, like I said, let's get stuck into this. Uh, for anyone who is new, again, if you've never come to one of my live streams before, we are in the middle of going through our A to Z series of sculpting creatures inside of Zbrush. The rules are quite simple. We go through the alphabet, we pick a letter, and we create a creature either of myth, realistic, or, or kind of anywhere in between, and we create that creature based on the letter. Now, the other rule is that we're not allowed, or I'm not allowed, to do anything other than find reference for the creature. So everything we do is live. It's all done cold. So that way I'm taking you through my thought process of creating a creature from scratch when I'm just given a couple of references. All right. And sometimes that works really well, and sometimes it does not work at all. Sometimes we struggle, but that's part of the process here, and why we do these live streams. So yes, folks, now that we've got all that out of the way, welcome back to another Firestorm Studios stream. My name is Pat, and we will be continuing with our A to Z of sculpting creatures in ZBrush. We are on the letter T, and today's topic is Toby Kadachi from the video game Monster Hunter World. And we are going to start, as always, with one of my favorites, Z-spheres. Now, if you're not a ZBrush user, this may seem a little bit weird, what I'm about to do, because Z-spheres is a function or a feature of ZBrush that only exists in ZBrush. There's not very many other pieces of software that have anything similar. But the best way to think about it is if you've done any kind of traditional sculpture or you've researched it a little bit, think of a Z-sphere as a digital version of a wire armature. So if I grab my Z-sphere here, I'm going to drag it out onto my canvas, tap the T key on the keyboard to go into edit mode, and then I'm going to tap X to get my symmetry up. Silent, been hearing people struggling about the weather lately. Yeah, split specs. That's good to know. Thank you. I'm glad you can't hear it. I did put my noise suppression on to a preset called air conditioning. So hopefully it gets rid of it. But yes, if you are living in the UK, the heat is quite extreme at the moment for us, and we're just not used to it. And very few places have air conditioning. I was quite lucky. I bought myself a little portable air conditioning unit about 3 or 4 years ago. And it's been one of the best purchases I've made. You know, working from home a lot in a small office, it gets very hot, particularly with just machines running and monitors and lights. And when you add in 25 to 30 degree heat outside, it really adds up. All right, so we have our first Z-sphere. And something I want to be to be very kind of aware of, should I say, is my icon in the top right here. Okay, this is going to let me know which way my object is facing on my axis. All right. So with this guy, I'm just going to bring up the other reference I have on my screen. Obviously, as always, folks, I tend not to show the reference I'm using, and that's just simply to keep us right, because we're then not showing kind of, copyrighted material. This is, I guess, it's in a computer game. It comes under fair use. So now let me just figure out how I'm going to do this. Now we're going to be doing a bust of the character, so this isn't really the best image for it, but it's the one I have. And what I'm going to do here is, with my Z-sphere selected, I'm going to move my brush into the middle so that it goes green, and I can just click and drag out a new Z-sphere. With that Z-sphere, I'm able to tap W to go into the Move tool, and I can move it up. And then I can continue to draw more Z-spheres to create the shape of my character. So that's all I'm going to do here. Just using these Scale, Rotate, and Move tools to create the base layout and armature for my creature. There we go. And what's good about Z-spheres is that it allows you to really quite easily block out the forms of your character, depending on how far you want to take it. So at the moment, all I've done is created a few chains, and that kind of gives you this idea of this more serpent-like style of creature. But you can take it a little bit further if you want. So for example, this creature, I go into the draw mode and I tap, the shape of the head is very snake-like. So if I wanted to, I can actually start to add more Z-spheres in to really refine that profile. And the creature also has some horns that seem to poke out from the top of its eyes. So if I think that the eyeball is going to be around about this area here, I can take that into consideration, and I can actually draw out a couple of Z-spheres on the top and then move them out. So it sometimes takes a little bit of finagling to get it to work. There we go. And then we can have those horns kind of pop out. Maybe scale them up a bit. That's probably why we're struggling a little bit there. Maybe make them a little bit bigger. And again, it doesn't have to be completely perfect here. All we're looking for is giving us a guide, a rough shape to work from. Now, I'll probably start just creating the creature's mouth closed initially, and then we'll open it up a little bit to kind of match more of the overall shape of the character. And I always make this mistake when I'm working with Z-spheres, particularly when I'm doing busts of characters, is I tend to make the initial Z-sphere just a little bit too large. So I've got to go back to my reference here, make sure that I'm getting that into something a little bit closer. And what I love about Z-spheres as well is that this always looks really funny. And I can kind of show you a little bit more of that. If you go into the Lightbox in ZBrush and go along, and under the Projects tab, you'll find a folder called Z-Zoo. And if you open that up, you're going to end up finding all these different animal types, all these different creatures made out of Z-spheres. Now, they also have some custom parts on them that you can do with quite a lot of extra work in ZBrush. But that's just to give them, make them look a little bit more like their real life counterparts. So if you are creating a creature in ZBrush, have a look in the Z-Zoo. You will be quite amazed at how many different variants of creatures are in here. And of course, it would have been very easy for us to just kind of do this and kind of pull one of these out, sculpt it. But I wanted to do something a little bit more custom. So we'll get rid of the light box there. So this is looking okay. I just want to bring the neck back a little bit. I'd love to have the time to do the whole creature because it's such a cool, it is such a cool character, and it might stay in the work in progress folder, and maybe one day I'll be able to do a little bit more on it. But this is actually our very own Mario, who is our superstar editor and producer of our podcasts and our live review sessions. He requested this, so I was like, course, of course we will do this. Why not? It's a cool character. Okay, now, if I tap A on the keyboard, we're going to see a preview of what ZBrush thinks this mesh will look like once we convert it from Z-spheres into a sculptable mesh. Now, this is a good thing to do kind of frequently as you're making a Z-sphere, because you will find sometimes that you end up with some breakages. Okay, you can see it's not as clean looking as this. And that's if you use something called adaptive skin. Okay, you also have something called unified skin, but what this is going to do is it's going to take an almost carbon copy of the Z-sphere shape and just turn that into a mesh. All right, but I want to take you through the standard approach here, and I'm going to use adaptive skin. Now, in these settings in the tool palette, I'm going to drop the Dynamesh resolution down to 0 and then redo that, and just redo that preview. Tap Shift F to open up our polyframe and have a little bit of a look at this. And it looks a bit weird, okay? I'm not going to deny that, but I want to show you how to fix that once we have converted it. But we can try a couple of things. We can scale down some of these shapes here, maybe move them a bit and tap A. And you can see that's starting to clean it up a little bit. And then I'll just move this around. See if that helps. It's not too bad, but again, we're still running into the same issue where it's breaking. So let's pull this out and tap the draw button again and see if that's okay. So I know where the error is. It's obviously in this Z-sphere in here. So I'm going to scale that down a bit. Okay, that's not working. So I'll try scaling up as well. Still not working. Okay, so sometimes things just won't work. And I know that's quite a frustrating thing to say, but sometimes if you're going for a certain shape with Z-spheres, it's going to break. But the thing to remember is that this is just a way to get started with a mesh, all right? So with that in mind, I'm going to leave it like that, and I'm going to show you how to fix it once we convert it. So I'll take the adaptive skin, I'll make sure that my Dynamesh is down to 0, and hit Make Adaptive Skin. ZBrush is going to make a duplicate of that mesh here. And I think what I'll do is I can do one of two things. I can either just simply jump over to this one and continue working in this subtool, or I can append this skin into my original version. And I think that's what I'm going to do, because I might want to reuse, say for example, I wanted to pose my character later on. I could use this Z-sphere skeleton here as a skeleton. I can use that to then give me the ability to rig my character. So I'm just going to go append, bring in my skin Z-sphere, and we're going to do a bit of housekeeping here. Before we do that, we're going to append a cube in. I'll cover that in a second. Scale it down. And just move that to the back of the character. I'm going to take this cube and I'm going to step and move it up to the top of my subtool list. And that is going to become our file name. This is something to remember. Again, if you've never used ZBrush before, the way it works with its file system is a little bit different from what you might be used to with a standard package. You have to tell ZBrush or give ZBrush a piece of geometry that it can save as the file. Because otherwise what ZBrush will do is it will rename whichever item is at the top of your list as your file name. Okay, so just be aware of that. And I'm just going to pop this Z-sphere down here, turn it off, and we're going to call this Toby. And I'm going to save my file. And at the moment, this is just called PM3D Cube. So if I do save as, and save it into here, now it's saved as Toby Kadachi. I think I'll rename this head. There we go. For the Z-sphere rig, I'm going to pop that into a folder and just call it whip. There we go. And we can just hide it. Now, I'm going to go and grab my move brush, either move or move topological. And in here, go into draw mode, make sure I have symmetry on. And now I should be able to start manipulating this, unless my tool is not going to work. Of course, my plugin is not going to work. That's just typical. Bear with me, folks. I just need to reset something. You'll see that the tool set I'm using is the Radial Z plugin from Pablander. It's very good, but it's also a little bit buggy. I've got to say, it doesn't always actually activate the brushes that you pick, which it's not doing today. So we're going to have to do this the old school way. We're going to grab our brush, hit M, and grab Move Topological. Now I can go through and start to reshape the character. Just using Shift to smooth out some of these parts. And remember, our eye, we know our eye is going to go under here. So I'm okay with just smoothing this out and moving this into position. If the eye is going to go here, what I can do, just to make my life a bit easier, let's pop a sphere in. You know what? Actually, let's do this a different way. Let's go to Macro, Append Eyes. Did it work? Yes, it did. There we go. That's going to give me two eyes with a shiny material on them. And we can get those eyes into place. There we go. And if we haven't just went ahead and made a cute little version of Toby Kadachi, well, there we go, we have. So let's get this now into the right shape. I'm going to switch into my move and grab my standard move brush. And just start flattening out the nose. We're not looking at or not thinking, should I say, about any small details at this point. We only care about the basic shape. And I know it's really low poly at the moment, but we'll get to that in a second. Don't really like how this is working. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down Control and Shift and grab my selection, grab my knife curve, and just slice that. Oh, wait a minute, I have multiple subdivisions, so we'll delete that, and we'll do it. There we go. So as always, folks, if you have any questions or queries about what it is that we're doing today, feel free to shout out in the chat if it's your first time at one of our streams. Also, feel free to shout out in our chat and say hi. And if you are interested in finding out a little bit more about what Firestorm Studios does, then you can check out the socials at the bottom of this live stream. And you'll also find a link there to our Discord server. And again, if you're really interested in joining an amazing art community, then make sure you follow that link. Very supportive and excellent place to be. And occasionally, a lot of the Firestorm Studios team will be in the voice chats. So you will get a chance to chat to us in person as well, if that's something that you're interested in. We try to keep it pretty relaxed, within reason, obviously. But yeah, good place to be, folks. It's a good place to be. Right, okay, so that's looking okay from that angle, but let's just go in and just adjust this. Now, you remember that when we first created the Z-sphere, and we had that adaptive preview, we reduced our Dynamesh. Now, you can, of course, leave that on, and then you would be given a Dynamesh geometry to work with. The reason I tend not to do it that way, and I do it a little bit slower, is I think it's more important to work at a lower resolution and really focus on those forms. The more geometry you have available to you, the more likely you are to kind of maybe jump ahead, and that can lead to lumpy meshes and mistakes. So take your time. There's no rush. There's no rush. One of the reasons I really enjoy doing these live streams is that it's about creating the art, about enjoying creating the art, and sharing a passion that many of us have. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be the best piece of art you've ever made, as long as you're enjoying it. And to be honest, I mean, very much like when we did the Quetzalcoatlus, I am very tempted to leave this exactly as it is. So, because I think this is kind of cute. Split specs. I am about to make a model of Miss Firestorm, the concept Peter did a while back on stream. Oh, cool. That'd be really awesome, split specs. I look forward to seeing that. Is there anywhere we can actually see? Do you stream split specs, or anywhere that we can kind of check that out once it's done? Because that'd be really cool to see. It's a great concept. A lot of fun to model for sure. Okay. All right. That's looking not bad. Just making sure that I've got a bit of a split here, and I'm going to try and make my life as easy as possible. So before we move over to kind of Dynamesh and then start adding other geometry, I'm going to start breaking the model up and then adding some more parts to it, just to give me a little bit more volume when we Dynamesh it eventually. So the first thing we'll do is switch over to Select Lasso, make sure that I'm not in perspective mode, and then I'm just going to drag a selection like so. Invert that, hit Control W, invert it again, and actually, you know what? That's okay. I'm now just going to select these two polygroups and bring them together. And we'll leave the other one at the top. And ironically, just out of complete happenstance, this this coloring here is actually his default coloring. So in the reference I have, so that's quite handy. But The reason I've done this is it's going to allow me to more easily separate the lower jaw and open it up when I need to. But we're going to go into brush here, and I'm going to go insert mesh primitives, and I'm going to grab a polysphere, and I'm going to use that to add in. I'm going to add in some extra details. Just let me check my reference here. There is a bit of the nose that I want to make sure I get right. There we go. And it kind of just sits in the middle like that. And we're going to scale it down. And we're going to jump back over to our move brush. And I'm going to bring that down like so. What I'm essentially doing here is it's a sphere, but I'm essentially making a cube out of it. So I've got this really handy top-down shot of the head. It's quite a small drawing, but it's a top-down shot of the head, so it's quite useful. I'm in the Discord, so it's definitely cool. Peter did this, his big one there. By the way, any plans on making a model of the concept he did of you? Not going to lie, it'd be cool if you all made 3D prints of everyone in the team. I don't know. I'm not sure if there is any plans for that. I'm not sure if there are any plans for that to happen or not. It would be very cool. I'll not lie. That would be quite an awesome. And it was a very cool. It was a bit nice surprise that he did a version of me. As I went to watch one of his stream recordings, and I saw it, and I was like, okay, that was a little bit of a surprise, but you know, I'll take it for the compliment that it is. So what you're seeing me do here, folks, is because my plugin is no longer working, I'm doing the old school way of approaching creating getting brushes in ZBrush. Okay, so just hitting the B menu, the B key, sorry, on the keyboard, then going for the letter of the brush that I want, and picking it from there. So again, I've taken my base armature, if you will, and now I'm just finessing the shape. And the good thing about this is they're all combined onto the one mesh, but they all make new polygroups, which means I can take the head section here, and then I can move the taper the head in like so, because from the reference I have here, that's what's happening with the head. And I've also decided that we're going to go into ZModeler here. We're just going to make a bevel on this edge loop, like that. And that is going to be where, do that again, there we go. That's going to be the edge of the mouth that goes under the, underneath the eye. It just looks like this comes back a bit like this. And now I'm just going to start reshaping the jawline. Just start to pull this out. Just really keeping the resolution as low as possible, at least to begin with. I tend to do this. I'll stay at a really low polygon count for a long time, and then all of a sudden I'll just jump up once I'm comfortable that I've got everything that I need from it. So let's take a look at these eyebrow horns. So it looks as though I've got the shape from the side correct, but not so much from the top. So we're going to go in and reshape these a little bit. Like that. And then we have a couple of shapes that we need to add for the lips and the brow. So we're going to do that now, but we're going to go into the Curve Tube Snap brush. This is a great brush. So if I simply click and drag, it's going to create geometry on the surface. And that's going to allow me to do this. So I can drag some geometry around the eye that. Hold Alt and Tap on the surface to complete that. And then, because everything gets automatically masked, I'm able to go in and edit that shape fairly fast. There we go. And then we're going to do the same now for the lip, because there's large scales on the lips that I really want to make sure that I kind of have a separate volume for. So that kind of comes down from here. I'm going to make the brush a bit smaller. Oops. There we go. So you may have to play around with this a little bit until you get the size that you need. Another thing you can do, if you're trying to get a certain look, you can reduce the intensity. And if I do that and I draw it out, you'll notice it flattens it down. So the way the intensity works with the curve tube brush is if I put it back to up to 100 here, and let's just show you, it's going to make as perfect a cylinder as it can, right? But if I then go in and reduce that intensity down and do the same thing, you can see, actually it's broken because I went over a sharp edge. There we go. I now get a much flatter look. So depending on the form that you're trying to create, adjust that intensity. It's not going to change how the brush is drawn in the curve, but it will change the height of that volume. Okay. I'm going to put that around about 50 and just redo this. That looks about right to me. Just move it a little bit. Alt tap, and then jump into the move brush and start moving that further back. And again, folks, remember, we're doing these cold. That's the point. So if I make a mistake, then I make a mistake. It's important to be comfortable making mistakes. Because you're going to make a lot of them. But that's how you learn. So don't worry about getting things perfect, because nothing will be perfect. Striving for perfection is a fast track to unhappiness. And remember, we want to be happy when we're doing this. Okay, so there's also a lot of large scales on the character, but I think I want to approach that in a slightly different way. Hopefully we'll get to it. It might not be the most polished look, but I want to show you an approach of creating scales without having to rely on an alpha brush. Okay. Okay, so with that done, I'll go into my subtool. The head's all in place, and I think we're about ready to take it over to Dynamesh. So we're just going to do a quick save and resave that. There we go. So we'll duplicate our mesh, and now I'll go into Dynamesh and take the blur down to 0, take my sub projection down to 0, and then I'm going to hit Dynamesh. And there we go. That's not too bad. I've just left it at the default. Dynamesh will keep your polygroups as well. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my brush menu, grab my trim dynamic. Yep, that's still not working. So make sure I have symmetry on. With trim dynamic, I'm just going to start using it as a bit of a smooth brush. I'll add a little bit of smoothing as well, but I'm going to use the trim dynamic to start refining the shapes of the character. Smooth it where we need it, and then just flatten it where else. The trim dynamic can be used as an alternate smooth, or an alternate way to smooth it. So rather than essentially just blending the geometry, what we're doing is we're planing off the sides. And you can also liken this to using a flattening paddle with traditional sculpture. That's how I understand it anyway. I assume that's what they were going for with it. So, and I'm just going to use this to, and oops, there we go. Just start to outline some of those forms. So you're able to smooth out the surface without destroying any of the form, and it gives you full control over it as well. Using smooth is fine, but you have to be very careful about how you approach it, okay? Because you don't want to lose your forms and you don't want to create a lumpy model. And this is how I stop myself from lumpifying the model. Don't worry if you do that though, because that's part of the learning process when you're sculpting digitally. Actually, to be honest, ignore sculpting digitally. I would say with sculpting, you can create lumpy models. But with 3D modeling in general, one of the early things that a lot of people do is their model looks too blocky because they're not looking around their model enough to refine that shape. So, there we go. I'm going to smooth this bit at the top of the head though, because it's a little bit messier than I would like. And I just need to jump back over to my other reference for the head. And it looks as though a lot of the shape of this creature is coming from these kind of scales that are fanning away from the head. So we'll get to that in a second. First of all, I want to bring the top of the head in a little bit more. Smoothing, a mix of smoothing and the trim dynamic. You get the look I want. Let's see if we can get that head back. Where is it? So you take the eyes and scale those down. Even smaller. There we go. We need to make the eyes really small. Okay. Back to the move brush and just bring this down on the face. And then I'm going to take my damn standard and just outline where the mouth is going to go. Oh, wait a minute. I see what I've done. I've made a mistake from my reference. So I need to add in another part of the jaw here. So I'm going to go into my insert mesh primitives, grab a polysphere, and I'm going to drag out 2 elements here. We're going to reshape these into these claws, these kind of teeth, if you will. They're almost like scales that form into teeth as well. So we'll just, and they go at each side of the creature's mouth, like that. And we'll just bring this out a little bit. And turn on AccuCurve, and that's going to give me the ability to create a sharper point when I'm using the move brush. Really good for this type of thing. Turn it back off. You get a broader reshaping ability. There we go. And then we're going to go into the brush here. We need to reshape this part here. Probably shorten it as well. I've noticed it's really long, so I'm going to use the masking tool to readjust some of the proportions. Just center that, reset it, and then just rotate it down. And if I soften the mask off a lot, then I can push this back like so, and even just scale it down ever so slightly. We're going to scale down the horns as well. Hey, Enred, how are you doing? Glad to have you here. Oh, let's get some local symmetry on. Come on, Zbrush, behave. There we go. Okay. I'm going to I'm going to hide the eyes for the time being and just do a massive, kind of bit of an overhaul change to the proportions here. Today we are working on, if I bring it up, let me see, or didn't even realize it was gone. We're working on a Toby Kadachi from Monster Hunter World. This is something I did not even know existed. I'm not a Monster Hunter World player, so aware of the game, just not aware of the creatures in it. So this is all quite new for me, and it's looking a bit better. I think what we'll need to do here is we're going to have to open the mouth. So as I said before, I can hide this part and I can also hide those. And there's a little bit underneath here that we're going to have to do as well. I don't want to go too far. So we're going to add to this selection. There we go. There we go. That'll work. So we'll just take this bit here and then just rotate that into about there, it looks like. Right? Yes, it is. Okay. So we just pull that down. Okay. I know it looks really weird at the moment, folks, but don't worry. So I'm going to bring back the eyes, and we're going to bring them down to a much smaller size. fill them in, and that's looking a bit better. I'm also going to change the color of them, get them into that kind of really bright orange, and just do a RGB fill object. Then we can switch back to white for this. Now, a little bit more tweaking to do. Now we can get into the fun part of just kind of sculpting this out and just kind of blocking forms in. So for that, I'm going to, apparently switch my color. That's not what I wanted. And I need my, where is it? Where is it? I don't think it's in here. No, it's not. So I'm going to have to go up to my lightbox and go into my projects. Why is that so? Okay. ZBrush is just being weird today, folks. There we go. Go into my brushes and I'm going to go into collections and Blender, general sculpting, and grab my clean build-up brush. And we'll just switch back to proper color here. And I think what I'll do is I'm going to take these here. I'm going to do an auto groups. I'm going to take the teeth at the bottom here and separate them off. That way I can just work on the jaw here. So I need a good shot of the creature from the side with the mouth open. That'll have to do. And let's get this lined out. So I'm just going to turn on Sculptris Pro here, just to give me something to shape the mouth with. We're doing something like that. And that's coming down like so, towards okay. Grab the move brush, and it looks like we need to reshape these a little bit better. These are not exactly where I wanted them to be, so looks like they're a little bit thinner and they come around under the chin and kind of jut straight up like that. Okay. And we need to add a bit more of a point to the beak. Maybe bring that up a little bit as well. There we go. And let's build up the area around the eye too. Having to jump around a lot here, folks. Sorry, with my reference. Let me just see if I can. There we go. We've got this really nice shot of the creature from above, which is quite helpful for the overall proportion of the head. So, but by God, is it hot today? Definitely struggling, folks. Definitely struggling. Oh, that's what I've done wrong there. Okay. That was bugging me, was the way that you know what? I think we're going to just get rid of these. These are just annoying me. So I'm going to redo those once I get the overall shape right. That'll be better. There we go. That's much better. Right. Okay. That's another thing, folks. Don't be scared to just, either redo something or readjust it if you're struggling. And I was struggling there. I couldn't figure out what it was that was just not sitting right with me. So I'm going to take the sketch I've got here and just start to use Sculptris Pro so that I can draw out where these elements need to go. There we go. Yeah, that's about right. And it looks as though eyes there, so this is going to come round about here. And now that I've got that marked in, I can start to reshape the back of the head to match. So we need to get this part of the mouth gone. We need to get rid of it. So there are a couple of different ways you can do this in ZBrush. You could create a polygroup and just delete it and then close the holes and fill in different areas. Or we could also use a Boolean. So I'll show you how we can use a Boolean, which can sometimes be quite handy. So what I'll do is I will, first of all, I'm going to duplicate the head. And I'm going to use my select lasso here and just select the mouth area like that. So it looks like something like this. Then go delete hidden and then close holes. So what I end up with is a shape that kind of looks like this, and I'll do a mirror and weld. I'm just going to reshape this. So we'll just smooth it out. Turn off Sculptris Pro. Reshape it out. Move it back. And you can do this either with an extracted shape like the way I'm doing, or you can make a custom shape from scratch. So I'll just do geometry. Let me think here. Oh no, not weld points. Z-remesher. There we go. Don't crash, don't crash, don't crash, don't crash. How far are we going to go with this piece? I will go as far as we can in today's session, Split Specs. I might keep it for later on. In fact, I don't like this. You know what? We're not doing it this way. I'm not going to make the Boolean out of this. It's too hot for that. I'm going to just make a poly sphere, and I will turn that into a Q sphere, and we'll just reshape it. Yeah, we're going to go as far as I can in today's session with it, and it would be quite cool to keep it lying around later on, or maybe kind of refining it a bit more. But I think for the time being, yeah, we'll just do what we can in one session. So what I'm doing here is I'm just stretching out a sphere, and I'm trying to get it to match the shape that I want to delete from my model. Now, the character does have this beak area, so we're going to try and keep that as best we can, but I don't mind resculpting it if I have to. So we'll do something like this. And we can maybe thin out the corner at the back here. And I'm going to pull the shape up here and get it as close as I can. There we go. Okay, now in my subtool palette, I'm going to take this mesh here. So this is my Boolean mesh. Let me just rename it. I'm going to call this Boolean. That's not how you spell Boolean. It's the right words. There we go. And I'm going to move that just underneath the head. I'm going to turn off any other piece of geometry that I'm not interested in being part of this. And I am, of course, going to do a quick save. Always save before you do a Boolean operation in Zbrush. Okay. To be honest, I think if before you do anything major at all in any software package, always do a save. You never know. You never know what might happen. Okay, so now I'm going to have to grab my magnifying glass. And underneath here, where it says Boolean, in each of your subtool, or along the top of all of your subtools, you're going to find these icons. Okay, so visibility, painting, and then these three here are to do with Boolean operations. So at the moment, this one here, this is just going to unify them together. And then this one here in the middle is going to cut one from the other. And then the one on the right is going to create a geometry where the models overlap. So I'm going to click on the middle one and then turn off magnifying glass and go to live Boolean. Now, nothing has happened. That's normal. You'll notice that the only object in my subtool list that has the eyeball on is my head. I have to turn on the eyeball of the Boolean operation for that to work. And, oh, there we go. Turn it back on. And there we go. And that's just going to cut out that part of the geometry. Now, the cool thing about this is I can grab my move brush and I can actually start manipulating the sphere. Now, it's going to be a bit tricky, but you can just grab and move things around and you can make a few changes. You can make a few amendments to the shape before you commit to it. There we go. Excellent. So I'll grab the head and I'm going to go down to Boolean and just hit make Boolean mesh. Okay, so of course Zbrush decided to do that to us today, so that's fine. We'll just go back to this and see what the problem is. Probably the mix of Dynamesh and Sculptris Pro. So we will do geometry, Dynamesh, and we'll just do picker and just do a re-Dynamesh. That's fine. And just to be sure, I'm going to go under mesh integrity and choose fix mesh. And then we'll try it again. There we go. We'll grab that again, do make Boolean mesh. And we might be onto something here. Okay, so RS Block, how are we doing? So with that done, I can now move this old head into the whip folder and the Boolean mesh. And I'm going to take the old head and put that in there too. And I'm now going to append the Boolean. And there we go. And do another quick save. Oops, it appears I've flipped. Oh no, it's because I've got live Boolean on. So there you go. There's a good example actually, folks. If I have the eye set to live Boolean and I turn it on, you'll see it's actually going to make an eye socket. So if you want to make a really clean eye socket in ZBrush, you can use this methodology as well. And you know what? Why don't we just do that? All right, let's take that and let's make another one just to show how this works again. Grab the head, make Boolean mesh. ZBrush won't always tell you. This is something that it seems to be a little bit of a bug. Up at the top, the union remeshing in progress might hang around a bit longer, but you'll just find the mesh in your, you'll find it in your subtool palette. So we're going to do that. We're going to take this one, pop it into the whip folder, and then we'll append. Where is it? There it is. Okay. So now that we've got that, now we can go about and start working the mesh up again. So back to our friend Trim Dynamic. And we'll use a mix of Trim Dynamic and Smooth. And we'll just start cleaning up the interior of the model. Now, you might get something like this where it's a bit too low res, so we can just re-dynamesh it once again. So do a quick re-dynamesh, turn off blur, no sub-projection, dynamesh, and there we go. There we go. Let's bring those eyeballs back in, turn off live boolean. There we go, got something to now sculpt around. For the eyelid. I say the eyelid, it's more just that kind of armored kind of section around it. So and we'll jump over to the clean build-up brush. Start to think about adding in some more details now. And actually start to sculpt some of the detail. So the brows seem to go along something like this. And there is what I would just say larger scales over the top of the head here. And there's a couple of ways you can do this, but I sometimes just sculpting them in is the best option. You can mask them and extrude them, but I think for some of the scales like this, the ones that are going to give a little bit more character to the creature, I would just manually sculpt them like this. Because they're more like large plates rather than individual scales. So I'm just blocking the forms out, and then we will look into actually separating them out in a little second. So let's just grab our move brush, and we need to make a small change to the width here. So we're going to bring these out. And bring them down. And I think what we'll do is once we've done this, we're going to do a Z-mesh, clean up our model, and then let's get a little bit of detail on the eye. So I'm going to take the eyeball here. It looks like it's a bit of a... Let's see if we've got symmetry on. Yes, we do. I'm going to jump into the paintbrush. And I'm going to take a yellow. Drag rectangle stroke. Circle alpha. Move that to the front a bit. The back, I'm going to go into a deeper red color. Just bring that around. There we go. And then if we need to, if you feel that the transition between two colors is a little bit strong, then just hold down Shift, turn off Z-Add, and then you can blend. You can use the smooth brush to blend your poly paint together. Okay. And then we just need to add the iris. So for that, we will, it's going to go into black here. And let's see, do we have any? Let me see if I can change an alpha shape here. Let's see. Modify. No, we can't. Not the way I want. So instead, we'll just do it freehand. Grab my dot stroke. And I need to make the iris. There we go. Nice and easy. And we can add a little bit more interest to the eye by maybe doing something like the drag rectangle with, where is it? Always lose this one. There it is, alpha 22. And we'll just pick one of the colors, darken it down a bit. Actually, let's do the red. And then I subdivide the mesh a bit more and lower the RGB intensity and just start bringing some veins into that. There we go. And you can play around with these as well. You can add some shapes around the iris as well. And then just do a quick blend together. Just to add a little bit of breakup. Looking nice. Thanks, Splitspecs. It's getting there. We're getting there. I'm definitely suffering from the heat, though. I know I'm suffering from the heat in that regard. So I just need to check this in regards to the... It's weird that it has no teeth, but so that's always a bit of a tricky one. But we're going to do what we can to make this work. And I've also got an idea. I've got a brush set that I might be able to use for the spike on the top of the head, but again, I'm not overly certain about doing it that way. I'm going to use my knife curve and just do something like that. Where are we? Clay buildup. Smooth out some of the shapes again. Grab the damn standard and now start to kind of outline where that separation is on the body. It appears to be just inside of the mouth there. And then let's add in, let's append hue sphere. And we will subdivide it once and then just flatten it down. We're going to move that into the corner of the mouth and out here, rotate that. And then this can act as the bit of flesh just at the side of the corner of the mouth. Like so. I'm going to go just on the inside. Need to stretch it out a little bit. I'll use the pinch brush to bring that down into something a bit more manageable. Maybe subdivide it one more time. There we go. So we want something that's got a decent amount of geometry to it, because there will be some sculpting that we want to maybe do on it. And just to give us enough room to manipulate it within the gum and smooth it back. And we'll do a mirror and weld for that. Oh no, we won't. We'll do, yeah, you know what? We will. We'll do mirror and weld. Or we'll do mirror. There we go. All right, let's fix the beak here. Turn off Dynamesh, move, AccuCurve. There we go. Looks as well as though the dam standard could be used here to outline this part of the beak and the nostril. Again, I'm probably going to use Sculptors Pro here, because it's going to help me get a cleaner look. And then this goes along here and around the eye. Okay. We'll take our dam standard and we can continue to, not dam standard, sorry, trim dynamic. And I'm going to continue just reshaping some of the form around the eye just to give us a bit more structure, like so. Do the same for the plates on the top. I'm going to have to give the plates a little bit more detail to split them up. We'll do that with Sculptors Pro. I also don't want them to be completely smooth, because I'm not going for super stylized. Semi-stylized, I guess, but I don't want it to be like really clean. What I will do now is I am going to select the mouth, like so. We're going to go into our masking tool, Mask Lasso, but I'm going to turn on Backface Mask and just slightly mask the inside. What is Sculptors Pro, by the way? Blender user here. Ah, okay, cool. Right, well, I will explain that shortly. I'm just going to mask out, where is it? Backface mask. Just going to mask out this section here. And this is just so that I can push this down. Give ourselves a little bit of a cavity for the interior of the mouth. And I'm deliberately kind of making it quite thick at the lip section, okay? I'm going to put a bit down the middle, because that's where I want to put the tongue. Okay. So, Sculptors Pro, we will look at it. I'll explain what this does at the top here. So, in ZBrush, you've got several different types of geometry, okay? So, at the moment, we're looking at a Dynamesh, okay? And what that's going to allow us to do is have, is control how much density of geometry we have that isn't topologically specific. So it's triangulated geometry to give us a nice clean surface to actually sculpt on. Subdivision surfaces are quite self-explanatory. That's like you'll find in something like Maya or Blender, okay? But Sculptors Pro is kind of the next stage of Dynamesh. You'll see here on this line that the geometry is far more dense. And with Dynamesh, in order to increase it, we have to go into the Geometry tab, into Dynamesh, and increase the resolution. And that's going to increase the resolution across the whole of the mesh. But with with Sculptris Pro, we can be selective about where that geometry actually increases, okay, or where that density increases. So if I turn it on, and with the wireframe on, if I make the brush smaller and I start to draw with it, ZBrush will create more geometry in real time to give me the density I need to create the shape I want, like so. So that allows me to have varied resolution across my model so that I'm not having to subdivide it up into crazy numbers just to get a small bit of detail in one area of a model. All right. So in the case, as a practical kind of case for this, if I use DAM standard, using the reference I've got, I don't want to subdivide the model yet or increase the resolution of the Dynamesh, but I would quite like to give myself a little bit more detail on the top here. So I'm using Sculptris Pro, and depending on the size of the brush I use, I'm going to get less or more geometry in order to give me the detail I need. And then we'll do this, like so. Bring that further down. Okay. And then once I've got those outlines done, then I can just turn it off and I can continue sculpting on the mesh as normal. And if I wanted to, I could use Sculptris Pro while I'm working with my normal brushes like this, but I don't need that much geometry for the shape I'm creating. So it's definitely for selective use, really. And I also wouldn't use it as a final detailing brush. You want to do that on a subdivided mesh or using textures, using something like Substance Painter or Imrie. Okay. So there we go, folks. So yeah, so hopefully that makes sense as to what it does. So you can see just slowly but surely we're getting the shapes that we need. I'm going to put backface mask on here because I'm now going to start indicating a little bit more of where these larger kind of armored parts are going to be underneath the face or underneath that eye area. That is a very low resolution piece of reference. Hey FBI, how you doing? Yeah, I'm doing good, thanks. That's a little bit warm for me, but you know, that's the only thing, really. It's just a little bit too warm for me today. And one of the things I can do here as well is I can actually turn off my. Oh, I don't have it on this one. You can turn off Use Tablet, so that you're not worrying about variation. If you're doing something really clean, go up to Preferences, Tablet, and turn off Use Tablet, and then whatever the pressure you have your brush intensity set to, you know, it will set it to that. You're looking. Thank you, FBI. I appreciate that. Yes, I think the lighting today is just showing you how hot it is because I can see that I'm a little bit sweaty today. So apologies. It's I have the AC on, but it's not doing great against the heat. So we're just going to keep going with this. I think I want to the bottom jaw is looking a little bit weak to me, so I think I'm going to bring this up like so, and let's do something like this. That's better. That's looking a little bit more impressive. That's much better. Okay. Doesn't always take much to fix a mesh if it's, or the shape of something if it's looking a little bit weak. So there we go. Looks like, I hate to admit it, folks. What is the temperature? The temperature is about 30 degrees in my office. So, and it's about 25 outside. So, I'm hoping it cools down for Monday because we have, actually on Monday, we don't know what we're sculpting because I have to do the letter U and I have not decided what it is I want to do yet. I have a selection of things, but nothing, nothing concrete, as you will. So, but I do think that today this is going to be, this might be a 3-hour one today, folks, just to get this done because the heat is stifling. Okay. I mean, at the moment, folks, I'm actually quite happy with what I've got. It's looking fairly like the design. It's not perfect by any means, but it's kind of getting there. And I'm just going to outline a little bit of this here around the eye. And it sounds crazy. I know, people think, oh, but surely you just use an alpha for doing scales and armor pieces. No, not sometimes. Sometimes you do just have to sculpt them manually. And I think what I would love to do one stream is to bring out a snake model I did that isn't sculpted in Zbrush and all the scales are manually modeled in Maya. It's a stylized one because obviously I wasn't that crazy, but yes, that would be quite a lot of fun to kind of showcase because sometimes you just have to do the high detail thing. So, and for example, if you're working in the industry and you're doing, say, like there's going to be like a close up, sorry, in the VFX industry, if you're doing something that's really close up, you're going to see it really close to the camera. It's going to be worth spending the extra time to model that object as though it's the real thing. Have you seen the snake in Sekiro Shadow Die Twice game? I have not. No, I don't. I've not played that. I have not played that game. I'm afraid. So I have not seen it. I have not seen that. Gotta be honest, folks. I mean, my gaming exploits at the moment are pretty dull. I'm not really. I'm kind of just going back to the same olds. So, I'm just going to start creating a few channels here, based on the reference I have. Just add a bit of variation to the creature, and the creature seems to have these big scales that fan out from its neck. And I kind of want to give myself some channels on the body to kind of hide those. So that's what we're doing. Um, oh yes, I remember the snake in, yes, Jormungandr in God of War. I think I butchered that pronunciation. Apologies to my Scandinavian viewers. Normally okay. Funny thing is, I remember when I went to Denmark, I was told I sound Norwegian when I speak Danish. So there we go. Apparently, when I try speaking Danish, I sound Norwegian. There you go. You learn something new every day, folks. If there's anybody from Norway in the chat, you know. Jormungandr. Yeah, that's right. It's too hot for that today. Too hot. It's just too hot today. Okay, let's see. Let's do. This is still bugging me. I think I need to bring this out a little bit. There we go. That's a nicer looking shape. I think what we can also now do is we can probably bring back our we can bring back the claws for the mouth, and let's start working them up a little bit better. So let's see, let's get a better reference of this. How are we doing for time? Okay, we're at an hour and a half, folks. We're at an hour and a half. And we're going to keep going. We're going to keep going. So this is interesting because I think I'm going to have to, I think the jaw needs to be a little bit wider at the on the actual main part here. Not much, just enough to kind of bring that shape out a bit more. There we go. Okay. Boom, 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 boom. Da, 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 da. That's right, folks. When it gets too hot, I start to hum. There's a joke in there that not everyone will get. But what can I say? The heat makes you delirious. So for this section here, what I'm doing is I'm just molding the shape roughly around it, and we're crashing the geometry together. Then what I'll do is we'll subdivide it a bit more, and then we can sculpt on top of it and try and recreate the shape that in the reference that I have. Okay, so I'm going to start with my dam standard and just bring that section right up the middle, like so. And that's going to be like the profile. That's going to be the profile that I'm now going to work the rest of the model around. Okay. And if I have to, I will actually, do you know what? We're going to do the inside as well. So I'm going to do this. And I'm going to take a little bit of artistic license. Mario said I could. So, you know, not much. I will try and keep it as accurate as I can, but for the sake of completions, there we go. And then I can use the pinch brush just to clean up the edge just a little bit. Okay. There we go. Grab a move brush. There we go. And then the last thing I'll do to finish these off is I will use the trim dynamic brush to flatten those profiles a bit. And occasionally you may need to subdivide one more time just to give you a little bit more geometry to plane away and work with. Okay. There we go. That's looking kind of cool. A little bit of a smooth. Like I said, I've created that. I used the dam standard to create that profile of the kind of, I guess, tooth, but more, I guess, jaw spike really. And then we'll use the. I think they might actually be, according to, it looks like they actually might be solid rather than hollow like that. So I might have to go and fix that. Just go in and tweak these. There we go. Okay. So we are slowly getting somewhere, folks. Okay. I think it's time to do a bit of Z-remesh on this guy. Actually, no, not quite yet. Not quite yet. I am going to use my clay buildup here and just turn on backface mask. That's good. Get a very slow response there. I don't know why. Why is that? Huh, weird. Okay. I'm just going to use this to block out the shape a bit more so that when I Z-remesh it, these forms are already in place. This has actually been quite a fun thing to do, actually. I've never done a computer game character like this. I mean, I've no idea about these. So I've never really created a character like this. It's kind of cool. You can probably see what I'm going for here as well. I'm just slowly indicating with some quite rough bits of geometry where where it looks as though some larger scales are going to go. I'm going to undo that. It's a bit too uniform for my liking. And I think what I'll do is I'll smooth out that area there and just do something like that. Because we do have the eye to worry about. I wanted with this one, when I saw that it was quite a scaly creature, I thought this could be quite a lot of fun because we can look at different ways of creating scales in ZBrush. And as I said at the beginning, they're not going to be like super refined. We're not going to be able to get them looking super sharp or clean or anything. But the thing is, as long as you know the methodology behind it, you can then apply more time to it in order to get the look that you want. Okay. So let me see how's that. So that's kind of coming around there. Like so. There we go. And then we're getting into the fan-shaped ones. So now just bringing up the edges a little bit of each of these larger panels, just to leave something a little bit lower in the middle. It's just going to make for, you know, I have some reference as well of real scales, by the way, for like alligators and things. That's what I'm using. Just to kind of add to that. There we go. It's something like this. This is where I would start to, as you like creatures, you might also like Lady L, Dimitrescu, Final Form from RE8. I do, yes. I have to be honest, Resident Evil 8 was really good. It was really fun, but I felt as though, spoilers alert if you haven't played it, I kind of felt as though the whole Lady I can never pronounce it properly. Dimitrescu, there we go. That whole section, I feel could have been the whole game. Like, I would have really enjoyed the whole game to be in that area. And I think that's something that I would love to see in the future of a game like that, because the castle and all that was just a really cool, really kind of cool environment to play in. So Okay, so before we go on to doing any crazy Z remeshing or anything, we are going to do a little bit of work on the inside of the mouth. So I want to, you know what, folks, we might, I mean, I'd say 3 hours, it might be less, it might be more. I just want to make sure we more or less finish this. So I'm now just going to start reshaping the inside of the mouth. This is one of those things, actually, folks. Here is a really good tip that I would say for when you're doing creatures. Do not sleep on the mouth or the interior of the mouth, okay? One of the things that will let your creatures down very quickly, and really, even if it looks super realistic on the outside and you've got great fur and groom and stuff, I would make sure that the interior of that mouth is accurate and doesn't just look like a 3D mouth, like you've just made a hole for the teeth to go. Really research and look at a creature that you're doing. So if you're doing something realistic, let's take a hyena as an example. They've always got their mouths open. So get that reference and really match it, okay? Because the mouth is actually, the interior of an animal's mouth is smaller than people think. Because remember, there's a lot of flesh in there, a lot of movement, a lot of stretching, etc. So you want it to look realistic, then you've got to focus on making sure that it isn't just a cavity in the head, all right? And that goes for your, obviously, fantasy creatures as well. You know, you want to kind of create the idea that there's something going on in the creature's mouth, okay? And it doesn't have to be overly complicated either, you know, even just a little bit, but the fleshiness is important, okay? Particularly near the back of the mouth where the esophagus is. That's important. You want to kind of make sure that looks decent. Ugh, look at the, oh, see, for example, look at the top of this. This is terrible looking. So we'll just, the roof of the mouth is sometimes a lot easier to do, I find, to make it look decent. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to use back and forth strokes with a clay brush and just slowly carve away the inside of the mouth. Like so. And I will always keep a bit of a ridge line down the middle if I can. This all depends whether or not you're designing the creature or someone has given you a design, of course. So be wary of that. Um, and now you see that not a lot of work's gone into that, but the creature's mouth now looks all the more realistic. So let's get a tongue in there. So we'll go to append, polysphere, initialize, and Q sphere. And we'll just subdivide that. And we'll get that shaped. And that's the thing, folks. You'd be amazed at how many shapes you can create on a creature just by using a cylinder or sphere. Sorry. And it's something to remember as well. If you are sculpting, again, I know that it's not as easy as this sometimes because it depends if you have access to something like that. But if you can find a local sculpting course, like a traditional sculpting course, it's really beneficial that you check it out, okay? Because it will be really helpful to your understanding of form and weight when it comes to working in digital sculpture as well. I'm not saying it's a must; you don't have to do it, but it will be very beneficial to you. to learn that. Okay, very beneficial. All the best sculptors I know have done sculpture in real life. In fact, a lot of what you would call I would say, I guess nowadays you would call them an influencer, but I just call them the kind of the OGs that I came up learning from. You know, the likes of Ryan Kingsling, Zach Petrock, Maddie Scott Spencer. And the last one, Maddie Scott Spencer, my great friend and mentor of mine. So I was very, very lucky to get to learn from her. And I still carry a lot of what I learned from her into everything I do every day. And the same goes for Zach Petrock and Ryan Kingsling. Those are some of my my kind of go-tos when I'm learning something new, particularly when it comes to the anatomy. So I'm just going to bring this down a little bit. Grab the move brush. Oops. Turn off AccuCurve. That would be helpful. What have I done? Oh, I've snapshotted it. If this ever happens in Zbrush, and you're like, crap, what have I done? Why have I got a double of everything? All you've accidentally done is hit Shift S, right? So if I do it again, Shift S, I can make a snapshot of anything on my screen and then move my object around, okay? And if you do end up with something like this and you're not sure how to get rid of it, just go to Layer and Clear, okay? So let's get the tongue into the mouth. And remember, the tongue does not rest on the bottom of the mouth, it actually rests on the top when it's not in use. So we're just going to do a Dynamesh, I think, on this guy. Delete the lower, Dynamesh. There we go. And then now that the tongue's in place, now I can subdivide it again and I can actually start thinking about pulling down this part here. Because again, with the tongue, remember the tongue is rooted to the bottom of the mouth. So you want to make sure you get that part in there as well. Sometimes it can be a bit tricky getting in there. There we go. And we can take something like the damn standard here. Not damn standard. I keep saying all the brushes wrong. Sorry, folks. It's the clean build-up brush I'm using here. And with the tongue, what I'm doing here is I'm creating a bit of a channel around the tongue. And then I'm building up the form on the top to kind of create that fleshiness. And then doing the same here at the edges. There we go. That looks all right. I mean, again, folks, if it looks terrible, tell me. Fire it off in the chat. Trust me, I have a thick skin when it comes to this stuff. I have been doing this long enough. I've been doing this a very, very long time. In fact, in February of next year will be my 20th year in the CG industry. And that's both kind of awesome and scary at the same time. So how is it scary? That would be because I'm getting older, FBI. That's because I'm getting older. Also, how fast the time has gone, to be fair. The time has gone very, very fast. But in that time, I've been very fortunate. I've been very fortunate to work on a lot of amazing films, a lot of amazing shows, and the most important part of that is I've managed to meet a lot of amazing artists along the way. And in that time, I've also taught. I don't even know how many students I've taught now. Since I started teaching when I was 23, I'm now 41. So I've taught a lot of people over the last X amount of years, and it's yeah, I consider myself very fortunate to have met so many amazing students over the years and had the privilege of teaching them as well. So, and I know that some of my students, former students, if you will, do follow these streams. So a big hello to you guys, and thank you for allowing me to teach you and impart some of my knowledge. So I think we're now at a stage, folks, where, well, for one thing, we need to add in the cool spike on his eyebrow. And there's a couple of ways we could do this. We could make a manual one, but I thought before we go on to looking at another way of doing this, the scales, let's take a look at, let's take a look at some brushes. So I'm going to go into the light box here. I'm going to go into, I've got a great brush for creatures here, if I can find it. I think I've got it. Let me see, creatures. I think I've got one. Yes, here we go. Diego Maricato has a fantastic brush set that I would very much recommend checking out. It's for spikes and scales. He has free options as well as paid ones. That's why I'm happy kind of bringing it up. Okay. So all I'm going to do here is go along one of these and pick the one I like. I'm going to grab the horn here and just drag it out. And I'm going to keep going through them until I find one that I think works for our character. There we go. Done. Now, we obviously don't have enough geometry here, so we now have to subdivide a couple of times until I get the shape I need. There we go. So that's one option. So that is now done. So I can now kind of step back from there. And now that I've got that in place, I can use this as a guide for the rest of my actual manual scales. So now that I've subdivided a bit higher, I'm going to increase the brush size, and I might just step down a bit. Now I'm going to go through and refine all of the outlines of my scales. Did you check the concept art that Pete made of you? It was months ago. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Thank you, FBI. I did. It was very cool. I was quite humbled that he did that for me. So, and everyone seemed to enjoy it, and that's kind of the important thing, right? You know, everyone, it seemed to pull in quite a lot of people. So what I'm doing here is I'm just outlining. I created those rough forms for the scales, and now I'm just working around them with my dam standard brush. Like so. And we also have much larger scales in here. They're going to be in between some of these gaps like this. Okay. I'm going to bring them all the way around. And for small scales, you can use an alpha, of course, but I do think it's worth your while whenever you're doing a scaled creature to really think about, don't blindly just go in and go, right, I am going to throw lots of alpha scales and stuff all over it. And that's fine if it's really small ones that people aren't going to notice, but those kind of key characterization or characterizational scales, really sculpt them in, because it's also really fascinating to learn about how scales grow on scaled creatures, because it's not random. There's a reason for it. Did you make a 3D model of it? Oh, no, I didn't. No, I didn't. I haven't made anything like that, FBI. I haven't made a 3D model of that. I'm sure somebody can. I don't know if it'll be me. I don't know if they're going to want that, but, you know. So let me just finish putting these in. I'm going to make much larger ones for the base here. How are we doing for time? Okay, we're actually at 156. We're doing okay for time, folks. I thought we would run out, but it has cooled down a little bit. It's only 27 degrees in my office now, so I think the AC is finally doing what it needs to do. So I'll just scale this up. Scale this up. Sorry. Mario's going to clip that one, guaranteed. So now that I've kind of roughly outlined those, let's just finish these ones at the back. Actually, you know what? No, we're not. I'm going to get rid of those. I don't like them. I don't like the shape they're making. So let's just flatten them back. And that's the next stage, is I'm going to take my trim dynamic, lower the intensity, and I'm just going to flatten the top of some of these forms. Like so. And just work up to the edge of each scale. I can put the subdivisions up as well. Just flatten those out. Now, when you come to the curved ones like this, you can't flatten them out as much, but I'll show you another trick I use for those. What's this? We're in winter here in South Africa. Oof, jings, lucky you. And by the way, folks, just in case anyone's curious, the word jings is a Scottish word. For shock and surprise, in case anyone's wondering. Okay, so, and I can change the size of the brush, and I can really start to work the edge of each scale together. And there we go. Now, one of my aforementioned mentors, Maddie, taught me this. The next thing I'm about to show you, and that is when you take something away, you should really add to it as well. This is kind of, it's not obviously a hard and fast rule for every situation, but in the case of the scales here, I've dug in to the side. So what I should really do is I should kind of add a lighter touch to each edge, but it should be in the opposite direction, right? Like so. There we go, just around the edge. And you can see the difference that makes. It just really helps it stand out. And you can do this with the dam standard like I'm doing. You can use you could also use an inflate brush. But trust me, it will make a huge difference when you're doing scales. And it's such a simple approach. You block out the shape you need, you carve away in between to kind of define where each scale is, you flatten the top of the scale, and then you go back and you add a bit of height to the very edge, which can really help bring the scales together. It just adds to the whole surface. The context in which Maria had taught me it was to do with it was actually with cloth and wrinkles and skin wrinkles, you know, and it works. It works, and as I said, I still use these techniques. I still use techniques that I learned when I first got into the industry, like, you know, from tutorials back using Maya 2006, Maya 6 version 6. So that's around about 2003, I think about 2003. So, you know, Okay, so I think what I'm going to do here with these shapes here is we're just going to carve into them a little bit, leave a bit of an edge, and smooth them back. So we're doing the same thing, but rather than adding a shape to the top of it, we're taking away from the inside, and it's just going to kind of create that cylindrical shape. Okay. There we go. And you can add a bit more variation as well as needed. And if you need to, you can also inflate these. So if I take the intensity down a little bit, I can inflate these larger scales together just to close the gap a bit. And at the same time, that's going to add a bit of height to each section in the middle. And there we go. But the key thing to remember whenever you're sculpting scales is time. Don't rush them, take your time, and you will end up with a very clean looking creature in the end. I've rushed this a little bit, I'm not going to lie, but you know, we're on a bit of a time crunch here, folks. So just realized I haven't really shown the front of this that much love in the last little while, so I'll add a bit of form, and we'll take our trim dynamic and just start to refine that a little bit. There we go. Probably, I got two options here. I think I'll grab the pinch brush and we'll do it the pinch brush way. You can use that to just sharpen up the edges a little bit. And then I'm going to grab H polish and just use that to sharpen up some of these, to clean up some of the edges a bit. And then let's do, no, not clay buildup. Let's do clean buildup. Just to fix the nostril. And then I think as well, I'm going to take my standard brush, just lower the intensity. I'm just going to work it along the edge of the mouth. Just a quick way of just refining the edge a little bit more. There we go. Okay. Hey, we're getting there. I think we're actually pretty close, folks. Let's just do save as. We'll do a save. So before we get onto the poly painting, I think what we'll do is we'll take another look at a way that we can create scales. Okay, and it actually requires a bit of poly painting, actually. But I think you might like it if I can remember how to do it. Okay, folks, this could be fun because I can't remember exactly how to do it, so you'll have to bear with me a bit, but we're going to try it anyway. So I'll duplicate the character here because I'm going to be removing geometry anyway. So I will duplicate my object, and you know what? Let's do this nice and clean. I'll hit clone, take it into a nice clean subtool. Don't have any subdivisions on it, delete lower, and the bit I'm interested in is obviously the body here. So I'm going to do RGB, fill object with white. And And then I'm going to switch my brush over to black and grab my paintbrush. There we go. No alpha, switch to dots, and then let's check how we're doing. Now, I'm going to turn off use tablet here so that I get a nice consistent stroke. So let me just put that down to 0, and actually let's put that up. There we go. Put that to black and put the RGB intensity to 100. And now we get a nice clean line. So let's say, for example, I want to make some scales. It's scary to have 20 years of experience because you learn so many methods and you forgot some. Oh, 100% FBI. I have forgotten more about what I do probably than I've learned. So let's see. I need to find some good scale. Actually, we could actually do the front. Yeah, we'll do the front here. So I'm going to take my paintbrush here, and I'm going to start drawing out the scales that I want, like so. So we're going to go with these kind of long scales underneath the neck here, and we will break them up in a second. I just want to and then we'll do something a bit different under here, and let's then maybe do something like that. And honestly, at this point, folks, I'm just kind of sketching. I'm not really thinking too much about it. And then I'm going to switch over to white and just get rid of some of these along the edges, like that. Switch back to black, and then I can start doing something like this. Okay, just as a for instance. And I'll just do a big line down here so it closes it off. And let's finish up under here. And obviously this isn't just going to work for scales, this methodology, if it works, because I still haven't quite remembered how to do it. I'm spending a bit more time sketching while I try to remember. You can use it for all sorts of things if it works the way I'm planning. There we go. All right, that'll do. So now that that's done, I can do one of two things. There's actually, now that I remember, there's two ways of adjusting this. So with this selected, I can actually go over to masking, and I can choose mask by intensity. I think, pretty sure I can. Where is it? Mask by color. Yep. So I've got mask by polypaint or mask by intensity. If I do intensity and then turn off my polyframe, it's not polyframe, my paint, and then switch over to this, there we go. So I can essentially paint a very detailed mask using the paintbrush, and that means I don't have to hold down the control key all the time and, I accidentally make a mistake. So what this is allowing me to do is now mask this section out. What's cool about that is that if we take this section here, we can mask out the rest of the object. So let's do mask lasso. And I'll just do it really quickly just to show you. There we go. Actually, that was not bad. I did a not bad job there. I'm just going to grow that in there. and then just clean up the rest of the mask with the brush. So this is a good way of being able to control your masking in ZBrush a little bit easier. So there you go. You can see that we managed to create a very clean mask. And make sure you get everything though that you're not wanting to affect, because otherwise you might get some random pieces of geometry. So now if I invert it, I'm left with that. Okay. Just take this part here, mask it. There we go. Now we can either, so we've got two options now. We can extract these pieces of geometry by going to Subtool, Extract. We'll make them smoother. And then we'll maybe take the thickness down to 0 and hit Extract. Hit Accept. And now I have a whole bunch of scales. Now with these scales, we've got a couple of options. We can clean up the geometry because it's going to be quite heavy, right? So we'll go into the geometry and we'll do Dynamesh, Z-Remesher, sorry. Symmetry's on, that's fine. And I'm going to turn on Adaptive and hit Z-Remesher. And this will hopefully bring these down. Actually, you know what? That's not what I wanted to do. I want to do Keep Groups, because I'm going to do an Auto Groups on this, and then hit Z-Remesher. So hopefully now it will keep all the individual groups, which it hasn't. Why is that? Why is it not doing that? Auto Groups, try that again. I think something might be connected on double. Oh, it is. It's connected at the back. Okay. Don't know how I've done that, but I have. So what we'll do is, yep, go away. Get rid of that bit. Jackie Roby TV, thank you very much for the follow. Much appreciated. So with that, I'm going to now just delete hidden. I'm just left with this now. Fingers crossed, everyone. We hit Z-Remesher, keep groups on. We get something like that, okay? And now we can go into Dynamic Subdiv, Dynamic, and we can add a bit of thickness, like so. And then we can bring that back together with our model. And now we have some scales. And because we have them in individual polygroups, we can pull them together. So for example, we can maybe, you can either move them closer together manually, you can overlap them, and you've got full control over those shapes, okay? So that's one option. The other option is you can take this here and we can go to Z plugin and polygroup it and then hit polygroup. And what has happened? Why is my polygroup? Just gonna hit OK. Waiting for it to finish. It might have crashed or broken. There we go. Why did that not work? I'm going to try polygroup from Paint. There we go. Let's just hide the mask. Okay, it does not appear to be working. Let's try border. All right. I am unconvinced, folks, that this is actually working. Create polygroups from the paint borderless. Okay, let's try this. Oh, wait. Sorry, folks. That's a mask. That's why that's not working. My brain was not working. So bear with me. There we go. Okay. Now, let's try it now that we're back to the paint. I forgot about that. I was using a mask. That's why polygroup wasn't working. So we'll try this. See if it fixes it this time. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So now we've got polygroups of all the areas that I created, right? So all the areas I've painted, those scales that I've got, I now have individual polygroups from. So we can now do something with those pieces of geometry. So I'm going to duplicate my head again. I'm then going to hide that bit there, delete hidden. And now I've got a couple of options again, because if we take this extraction, the second one, we can go back into geometry, try dynamic, turn off smooth subdiv, and we can do some thickness, right? But that's just going to bring everything out because it's one mesh with multiple polygroups. So what we can then do then instead is we can try, where is it? Edge loop, panel loops. So with panel loops, we're going to be able to adjust the thickness. We can adjust a polish level, so how smooth it's going to be, and we can adjust the strength of a bevel. So what that lets me do is if I hit panel loops, now I've got instant scales. Okay, so you can apply this to pretty much anything. And then if you wanted to as well, you could take this and do a group split this into individual groups, and then add thickness and do various things like that. Or we can do panel loops and do auto groups. And now I can take something like this, mask it out, and then grab my move brush, and I can start to overlap it. And do exactly what we did before with the, oops, clean buildup. Where are we? Oh, it is the clean buildup. That's what I wanted. So now we can go in and we can start sculpting out the scales and adding some more variation to them. Let's just play around with a few things. So you can do things like this. Really break it up. Okay. And what's cool about that is that if you have a specific concept art that you're really trying to replicate, this is a really useful way of doing that, because you can just draw it. You just paint out on your model how you want the scales to look. You use polygroup it to create polygroups. Then you can use panel loops to bevel and extrude those. Okay, so there we go, folks. So that's just another way to create the scales of your character. Okay, but instead, I think what we'll do is we're at 2 hours and 18 minutes, so I think we're going to jump in and do a little bit of poly painting, and then we'll call it a day. So before we do the poly paint, we're going to do some Z remeshing. So I'm going to take, let's do the tongue here first, subdivide that up, delete lower, and yeah, that's fine. Okay, let's take a little bit of let's look at some housekeeping here. So we'll do tongue, because I have to do a render of this later on, so we have the time. So I'm going to show you how I actually go about setting this up. So inner mouth, tongue, and then we'll call this eyes. And we'll call this head. And then we've got the chin spike. Okay. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the tongue and Z remesh it. So let's save the file first. So save and 7. And we will do a Z remesh on this. So Z remesher, symmetry. I don't need to add any, I don't need to do any projection here because I've got enough geometry to work with. First though, I'm going to go to Z plugin. And actually, before I do this, I'm going to make a bit of a poly group here. So I'm going to take my select lasso and just select the bottom section, hit Control W to make a fairly clean poly group. Go to Z plugin, UV master, turn off symmetry, and then turn on polygroups and hit unwrap. Okay, and if I go into the UV map, turn bump down to 0 and hit morph UV, there are my two halves of my tongue. The UV master in Zbrush is really useful if you just need to block out UVs quickly for a complicated object, but you shouldn't be using it as final UVs. When I'm doing these kind of quick sketches, I need to get them into Marmoset as fast as possible. So I like to do quick UVs and then send it over to Marmoset, okay? So, because we don't have all the time in the world to put these together. I'm going to repeat that process for the inner mouth. Not going to lie, that was a lot of steps. Don't worry, we're going to be repeating it, FBI. So, we have the inner mouth part. So we already have some subdivisions on this. I'm going to go down to the lowest subdivision. Then I'm going to go to Z plugin, turn off polygroups, and just do unwrap. Okay. And the reason I've done that is that there's just two separate pieces. And again, these are just quick UVs to help you get something into Marmoset quickly. They're not for production. I would strongly recommend you do not do your UVs this way, as in don't do your UVs this way for something final, okay? If you're doing something for production, if you're doing something for a university project or a college project, do not do them this way. Always do your UVs properly and always do your retopology properly, all right? It is imperative that you do that. You ask anyone in the industry that's been working in the industry, they will tell you that retopology and UVs are some of the most important things that you can understand how to do. And in regards to prepping your models for other departments, it helps so much, okay? And it's imperative that it's done. Anyway, so lecture aside, let's go to the eyes. Subdivide them down, C plugin, unwrap. And then we now need to do a bit of projection on this guy. So for this, I'm going to do a delete lower. We've got the highest subdivision level. And I think what I might do here, subdivide him one more time, delete lower. And you know what? No, we'll do that later on. That's fine. We don't need to do it for this one. So I'm going to take the character. And I'm going to go to, I'm going to duplicate it. And then I'm going to go to my top one and do a Z remesh. Symmetry's on. I'm going to change the target count from 5 to 10, so just give myself a little bit more density, and Z remesh. I swear it sounds like you're casting a spell. I'm just making trash, actual trash. There we go. So let's see what that gave us. That's pretty good. Oh, interesting. Okay, so we have a bit of an issue here. It looks as though I've lost symmetry at some point. So we cannot do our Z remesh symmetrically. So I need to turn that off, hit Z remesh, and see what it gives us. It's for a Roblox game. I swear it sounds like you're casting a spell. Thanks, Split Specs. For which bit? All of it? Just generally the way I'm speaking? Just misunderstanding this, you know, just Scottish gibberish? Or just the tasks in Zbrush? Do let me know. Okay, so now that we've done this, we can see what we got. Oh, what is going on? This is weird. Okay, we have a problem. Let's see. Let's delete that. Okay. Turn off symmetry. And try Z remesh again. Let's see here. There's a chance I might have to export out this model as an OBJ, bring it back in order for the Z remesh to be fixed. This is interesting. Oh, there we go. It's finally working. Just not your accent, just the ZBrush steps. Yeah, ZBrush does have a lot of steps to things. That is definitely something it has. Okay, so there we go. We've got our model Z-remeshed now. So now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to step back to before it was Z-remeshed, hold down Control and click. You'll notice that my undo slider goes white. Okay, that lets me know that I've saved this model here in ZBrush's memory, which allows me to move forward with my nice clean Z-remeshed model. I will first, I'm going to do the same trick with the polygroups. And just giving myself 4 quadrants to work with here. And then do Z plugin, unwrap. When active, ZBrush, yep, that's fine. So that should have worked. And I'll know because I'll go down to UV map. Oh, no, it hasn't. Okay, so that's strange. You turn off polygroups and try that again. There we go. Do that again. Right, there we go. Morph UV. And there we go. So I have something to work with. All right. Give me 2 seconds, folks. I have to let my cat out of my office. I had no idea she was under my desk. I have to go. We'll join the Discord and catch you later. In VC sometimes. Okay, FBI, no worries. Take it easy. Have a good day. All right. So now that I've got the UVs and I've got my project saved, I can now subdivide this. I'm going to store a morph target first. Then I'm going to subdivide the model to about, let's call it 8 million. Then I'm going to go down to my lowest subdivision again, go back to morph target and choose the switch button. And the reason I do this, you'll notice if I switch between them, when you start subdividing a model, it will smooth it out and average it a bit. And that can shrink it. So when you do your projections, things don't line up exactly as you would expect. So I have to hit switch. That puts it back to its original cage shape. Now we can step up the subdivisions, delete our morph target, hit store morph target again, and now we can start projecting. So I'll go to subtool, down to projection, I'm going to turn off color, change the mean to 12, and remove the blur, and hit project all. And it has not worked. That's interesting. Why? Oh, wait a minute. I think I know why. Right. Let me just turn off all of this stuff here and then hit project again. Project history. Sorry, my apologies. I meant to hit the project history button, not project. The heat is getting to me. What can I say? How are we doing for time, folks? 2.5 hours. Okay. And there we go. So now we get all of our nice detail back and we have our model ready to paint. So everything's got UVs, everything has a nice clean topology. And now we can paint. So first of all, we're going to grab it's quite a bright pink for the mouth. So we'll do that for this part. RGB is on, RGB intensity to 100, fill object. Do the same with the tongue. And then we can set back to white. We've got 3 colors to deal with here on the main character. So I'm going to go with the base, which is like a light blue. That looks about right. Fill object. Then we've got a lighter, like a light yellow along the underside. I also try not to worry too much about bleeding off in between the different sections, mainly because for a creature like this, you want that blending, to make it look a bit more natural. So we're going to go with this nice light yellow, and it has a bit of pink on its belly as well. So I'll bring that in to the model. And then the last color is a much darker blue, which seems to affect this section here. It's going to be a bit more of a detailed mask. Okay, folks. Invert that. And this is going to be a much darker blue. So let's do something like that to begin with. I'm actually going to hide my mask so I can see how that's looking. It needs a bit more green in it. So maybe we're going to go, what I might do here is maybe do something like this. And then I'm going to take the green, but I'm going to lower the RGB. And just there we go. That's the color I want. Okay. So honestly, that's really what we need. We've got our base colors in. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to masking and I'm going to choose mask by cavity. And let's see, that's actually not done a great job. Let's turn the blur off. Okay, so that hasn't, oops. I've also noticed the mistake I've made there. Oh well, that's fine. We'll just have to redo those by hand. Go back to paint, grab it, and then we'll just do this. But this is because I forgot that the model's actually lost its symmetry somewhere along the way. So there we go. There we go. We'll take now we'll do the kind of secondary shading. We'll just grab the color, make it slightly darker, and start to kind of add a bit of extra shape to it. Grab a spray stroke and an alpha. Cover that up. And then I'm going to take the light color again, lower the intensity of the RGB, and then just start to break up the color. And for the tongue in particular, I'm going to subdivide it a little bit higher and then go into my surface noise here. And just add a little bit of extra detail to it. There we go. We can do the same with these, but I'm going to leave these on because I need to be able to see where it is I'm actually painting. So we'll grab the darker color and we'll start breaking that up. Again, quick sketches. We're not going for perfection here. We're just going for something that looks kind of cool. Maybe make that a bit darker. Oh, too much. There we go. I think what we're going to do as well is eventually I think I might cut the head a little bit more just to add a bit extra detail to it. Sorry, to kind of get away from the fact that we don't have detail on the neck. Although the other thing I could do is I could spend a little bit more time just breaking up the rest of the body with some scales, which would look quite cool. But I will do that if I have time. But there we go. Again, not worrying. I don't care if it's perfect. I just want to make something that looks kind of cool. A quick sketch. And then I can always clean it up a little bit later. Increase the size of this a bit. There we go. I think what I'll do for here is I'll change the stroke type to drag rectangle and increase that intensity. And let's push that a bit more, a bit higher. There we go. And I want that to be a much darker color, I think. Yeah, that's better. And now I'm going to do that trick I did earlier. I'm going to now blend some of the colors together using the smooth. And then take the main color, very low intensity, and just fill that object. There we go. And the last thing I would probably do here is I'm going to take this blue here, darken it down, take off the alpha, switch over to a dot stroke. And now I would have to go through and start to kind of manually just darken up some of these areas. And we're specifically doing it with a very similar color because we don't want it to be too contrasted, but we do just want it to kind of pop ever so slightly. And then we can even take something like the very end of the beak and we can just darken that off. So we get a little bit of a bit stronger contrast there. And then let's take something a bit lighter than our main color here. And we can use it to, sorry folks, my shoulder's starting to seize up a bit. Just use this to lighten up some of the middle parts of some of the scales, just to make them stand out a little bit. Lower that intensity for the darker ones. And I think for the top of the horns as well, let's make that, they look much darker in the concept art. There we go. Oh, yeah. Okay, folks. Oh, last little thing we do need to do, though, just to kind of really finish off, is we need to get the inside of the mouth painted. So that it matches. Otherwise, it's not going to look very convincing, is it? I'll maybe darken it down a bit as well. Just, oh, probably a good thing we're finishing up because I'm getting some really weird ZBrush behavior here. I can feel a crash coming on. All right. Okay, folks. So I think I might do a little bit of extra work to it, maybe later on, once I've cooled down a bit, just before I put it into the render at for Marmoset. We can maybe do something like a little bit of surface noise on him as well, just to break him up a little bit. Let's take that color blend down to 0, and let's maybe increase the type of noise. There we go. That looks quite cool. We can adjust the scale a bit and then hit OK. There we go. All right, folks. So I think we can call that finished for the day. I think we've, let me see, finished that at version 8. And there we go. All right, folks. So we are now at around just under 3 hours. So not bad, 2 hours, 45 minutes. Again, I would like to thank everyone for coming along today and hanging out while we sculpt this. If you're in the UK or anywhere else that's currently experiencing a heat wave, I want to thank you as well, because it could not have been pleasant. As always, folks, if you want to learn more about what Firestorm Studios has on offer, please make sure you check out the links below this video, and make sure you follow us over on our Discord to join the community and find out firsthand what it is that we have planned. So I want everyone to go ahead and enjoy the rest of their day and enjoy your weekend when it comes, folks. I will see you all again on Monday, where we'll be starting the letter U once I decide what it is that we're going to actually make. So yeah, so wish me luck on that one. All right, folks. Until next week, take care of yourselves, enjoy your weekend, and I'll chat to you all real soon. Bye for now.